Just a couple of days after being delivered what should have been a massive wake-up call for the Liberal Party, Peter Dutton and his acolytes have proven without doubt that they are still fast asleep. This video is kind of long and it took quite a while to put together, but I think it's important, so stick with it.
Well, the Liberal Party resolved today to say
let's cut to the chase, freak show.
No to the Prime Minister's Canberra voice.
Yep, that's it in a nutshell.
A resounding no to the Prime Minister's Canberra voice.
He's now positioned himself as the no guy. Yep, the guy that took 15 years to apologise for boycotting an apology has said no once again.
It should be very clear to Australians by now that the Prime Minister is dividing our country and the Liberal Party seeks to unite our country.
I think what he meant to say here was...
It should be very clear to Australians by now that the Liberal Party is dividing our country.
We now return you to our regularly scheduled program.
But the Prime Minister has so far changed the wording to be put to the Australian people on 3 occasions. The latest version against the advice of the Solicitor General and the Attorney General.
This claim really doesn't seem to hold water. Not even the Sydney Morning Herald are buying this one, having already debunked Dutton's claim a couple of times. Side note, much has been made about Albanese not releasing the Solicitor General's legal advice. It was even written about at length in the Sydney Morning Herald article that went on to debunk some of Dutton's other claims.
The government has refused for no good reason to release the legal opinion of the Solicitor General.
Why do I feel so dirty playing that? The point is, governments typically don't release the advice of Solicitor Generals. The Sydney Morning Herald actually make note of this fact in the last paragraph of their article. It's just standard convention. It is true that Albanese previously broke from this convention late last year when he released Solicitor General advice around the Morrison multi-ministries debacle.
Yes, I received the Solicitor General's opinion on the matter of the validity of the appointment of former Prime Minister Morrison to multiple portfolios. Now today, given the highly extraordinary and unprecedented nature of this issue...
As he said at the time though...
I am releasing that opinion as a one-off, should not be considered to be a precedent. But very clearly when we're talking about an issue of transparency and secrecy and accountability, then it was important that that opinion be released.
Today is not a no from the Liberal Party, it's a day of many yeses.
Please indulge me for a second.
Yes, 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 yes.
I'll have what she's having.
Worst remake ever.
Today is not a no from the Liberal Party.
Seriously though, what is it?
But it's a no. It made me very upset and very angry.
I don't believe you.
Australians expect their leaders to work together. I stand here today disappointed with the Prime Minister.
I think what Suzanne was maybe trying to say here was...
I stand here today disappointed with the opposition.
That's more like it.
In terms of the opening remarks, the Liberal Party leader spoke for approximately 1 minute and 55 seconds, while his deputy rambled on in a bumbled attempt to attack the government for over 5 minutes. I don't know, I just found that interesting.
Audition?
Just on the back of Aston, do you think that your position today is something that might lead to further electoral failure?
No.
Do you want to think about that some more?
No.
That response defies all logic given that the majority of the country are behind the voice, just based on recent polling.
Will you be actively campaigning, and to Ms Lee as well if I can, actively campaigning no against the voice in this referendum?
Yes, I will be. I don't believe this is in our country's best interests. Not
supporting it is one thing, but to actively campaign against it demonstrates how tone deaf the Liberal Party are these days.
I've spent literally months, like many Australians, trying to understand what it is the Prime Minister's proposing.
Now, the Prime Minister has met with Mr Dutton 7 times. 7 times. And at no time did Mr Dutton make suggestions to the constitutional amendments.
The Liberal Party under Dutton are digging in with a whole range of bad faith arguments.
We can't get the basic detail out of him.
I had 7 meetings with Peter Dutton. Peter Dutton spoke to the referendum working group twice. Peter Dutton said that he would make an announcement after the committee that's been established to consider that legislation reported in 6 weeks' time. But we had a by-election in Aston on Saturday, and yesterday's hasty bringing together of their caucus Peter Dutton himself said on Saturday night, in a moment of honesty, everything that is driving his key performance indicator is just one: holding the Liberal Party together. In between July and April, there hasn't been a suggested word change from any member of the Liberal Party, any member of the National Party.
And I think that is a deliberate strategy. Now, we've held off, waiting to see if there was any advice provided. They've taken a deliberate decision not to give the advice. We now know that the wording put forward in its third form is inconsistent with the advice of the First Law Officer and the Solicitor General. That is a very important point to make.
The fact here is that he doesn't know this. Again, he's repeating something that has been debunked. Professor Marsha Langton, apologies if I've mispronounced that, a member of the Indigenous Voice to Parliament working group, was asked about this on ABC's 7:30.
Mr Dutton also claims that the Solicitor General argued against the Voice being able to make representations to executive government. It is central to the case that Mr Dutton is making. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. That is absolutely not correct. And I'm really astonished that, a member of the Australian Parliament would be so deceitful and propagate what is essentially a lie. I think he thinks he can get away with lying, and he'll be thinking, oh, all these nice Australians will believe him and they won't believe us. I think his opposition to the Voice relies absolutely on deceit and misrepresentations and I have to say, a great deal of ignorance.
Dutton tried to run the same Solicitor General line on insiders, and not even David Spears was having it.
In fact, they've gone against the Solicitor General's advice on this issue, that they are
That's
going
not
to
what
keep,
they say, to be clear. To our viewers, they've said the Solicitor General supports where they've landed.
The Solicitor General and the Attorney General went into the committee with advice to take out executive government. They were overruled.
They deny that, Mr Dutton. They deny that, Mr Dutton.
Well,
I just need to be straight with our viewers. They've denied that.
That's what happened, David.
How do you know?
Well, I have a better understanding, I suspect, than...
Were you in the room?
No.
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 Personally, I'd rather take the word of someone that was in the room, wouldn't you?
I'm really astonished that, a member of the Australian Parliament would be so deceitful and propagate what is essentially a lie.
I think what we're saying to Australians is that we want to hear a better way for Indigenous Australians who are in the most dire of circumstances.
Here's a reality check. The Coalition had close to 10 years in power. That's plenty of time to propose a better way. They didn't.
We do believe in constitutional recognition. It's a very important policy, and I want to sit down with the Prime Minister to work out the wording so that we can introduce it sooner than later.
You had ample opportunity.
I had 7 meetings with Peter Dutton. Peter Dutton spoke to the referendum working group twice, and on none of those occasions did he take the opportunity to say, these are the words that should be changed. In between July and April, there hasn't been a suggested word change from any member of the Liberal Party, any member of the National Party.
They specifically told you when you had those meetings in communities, they wanted you to actively campaign no for a voice to Parliament.
Absolutely.
I know you're sceptical.
No question. I mean, we met with Indigenous leaders who were strongly in favour of the Voice, no question about that, particularly in East Arnhem Land. That was the general consensus, I'd say, in Arnhem Land, but elsewhere, absolutely without hesitation. They don't believe that a body of 24 people selected, predominantly capital cities.
Tom Calmer and I were co-chairs of the senior advisory group in the Voice co-design process, appointed by Ken Wyatt, and we chaired meetings of 52 people, including a national Voice co-design group and a local and regional Voice co-design group, from all over the country, from rural and remote Australia and from the cities, from every state and territory. And it was a collaborative effort. And a lot of people say that that was a government report. No, it was not. It is the report of the 52 people on that Voice co-design committee. And we presented 2 reports to Ken Wyatt. He's explained this in public a number of times. He took the interim report to Cabinet, no comment. He took the final report to Cabinet, no comment.
Side note here, Ken Wyatt, the first Indigenous Australian elected to the House of Representatives, and former Minister for Indigenous Australians in the previous coalition government, has quit the Liberal Party following Dutton's announcement.
One Indigenous lady said to me, and I'll quote her, "I don't want 24 academics representing us because they just won't be our voice."
Well, fortunately that's not what the voice is. This is a fact Dutton could have clarified with this mystery lady. I mean, if he'd taken the time to read up on it, or absorbed any of the information in the 7 or so briefings that he's had with the Prime Minister. Dutton and Lay both attempted to frame this as an Albanese initiative, a Canberra voice. Their slogan was repeated over
the Prime Minister's Canberra voice.
And over
Anthony Albanese's voice proposal.
And over
the Prime Minister's divisive Canberra voice.
And over
a divisive Canberra voice.
To refer to it that way is being more than a little disingenuous. The voice was proposed in the Uluru Statement from the Heart, presented to the nation in 2017 after a 16-member referendum council travelled around the country consulting with over 1,200 First Nations people. Almost 6 years ago now, the Uluru Statement from the Heart called for the establishment of a First Nations voice enshrined in the Constitution. You can read the report from the Referendum Council submitted in 2017 online yourself. It clearly recommends a referendum to be held on the voice. So this is not a Canberra voice. This is not an Albanese initiative. If anything, the fact that it's taken almost 6 years to get to this point, and for the Albanese government to take action, that all just highlights another Morrison government failure, doesn't it?
That sounds fair enough.
A government Dutton was a key member of. Dutton himself best summed up his own arguments for a no vote.
It's disingenuous at best.
At least he was upfront with one point.
And I think the Australian public will make their own mind up.
The people will decide. Let's just hope the people decide based on fact, rather than more Liberal Party gaslighting.
You're now making a public statement you're going to actively campaign against this referendum. So if the referendum gets up, will you resign?
Well, Mark, again, I mean, people can draw their own conclusions around, what people should do, and the Canberra bubble will always have those sort of questions. I think that the fact is that we have taken a decision that we believe is in our country's best interests.
I think it's fairly safe to say he's not going to voluntarily resign. He seems like the kind of guy that might need a push to me. Bridget Archer, the Tasmanian Liberal backbencher, and apparently one of the few remaining Liberal Party members with a backbone. Here she is speaking not long after it was announced that the Liberal Party would not be supporting the voice.
At this point, I've realised, and probably realised the first time, that I took a contrary position, that it is 100% not without consequence. And it's part of the problem, I think, that we actually have as a modern Liberal Party, if we're going to move constructively forward, is that we have to actually live the values that we claim to have. And I don't know that we do that. Whilst we talk a big game about people having the freedom to express their views and the freedom to cross the floor, in practice it is 100% not without consequence. And I think you can, even without looking at my own example, I think you can look to history at members who have done that and just have a look at how their career advancements worked out for them in the Liberal Party.
Has it tested your faith in the Liberal Party?
Yes, it has. And, I think coming on the back of other issues recently that also test my faith in the Liberal Party, and I think those are some of the lessons from both the 2022 election and also obviously from the Aston by-election on the weekend. But I signed up to those values. I believe in those values, and, I have a loyalty to the grassroots membership that pre-selected me for the Liberal Party to run for them. And I know that many of those people are like-minded and that they agree with my views. And so I guess that drives me on to a degree that I think it's worth fighting for.
This makes me beg the question, is Bridget Archer the last good Liberal? And if so, how long will she remain a Liberal? Or is she bound for the crossbench?
We can chalk Bridget Archer up for one, Ros, as a backbencher who will avowedly be campaigning, yes.
Listening to her speak, it seems fairly clear that she's not a natural fit for Team Dutton. Can you imagine if Bridget Archer was the opposition leader?
At the end of the day, this is not a political plaything. This is a decision that the Australian people will make, and I have faith in the Australian people.
Taking the stance that he has, I'm wondering if it's going to take Peter Dutton another 15 years to realise that once again he's landed on the wrong side of history.